Free socks.
The NHL playoff picture is still up in the air, but here in Winnipeg, fans are confident the arena will echo with the sound of white noise again.
Free socks.
Let's go! Go, Jets, go!
Winnipeg is back in the big leagues and over the moon.
Welcome back to the landing strip for Game 32 versus the Montreal Canadiens. And it's early. The chat is just getting started, but already some comedians in-house, already some fired up people. I'm excited to see you. As usual, the landing strip brought to you by your boys over at Top Line Media. And this show is presented by From Financial. Mikey, long time no see as we split ways in different Ubers leaving the arena tonight. How are you doing tonight?
Man, I'm flying high after that one. That was such a fun game to be at. Such a good time. Getting to see Patrick Laine once again. Getting to see Lane Hudson in person. The Jets even get a win on the night. It was a blast. We even got to hang out with one of our listeners, our viewers, Doug Henderson. It was nice to meet you, Doug. So yeah, I'm doing pretty good. The Jets are probably pretty happy after picking up those points. So yeah, let's get to it.
Hey, before we get to it, Pix is calling for it. JPix29 says on Twitch, "Give it to me. I need it." And he's right. We need it. Before we get moving with this show, there's a win song we got to get to here.
Asking, you shall receive.
Oh, baby. It hits the spot every time. It hits the spot every time. And before we get over into game analysis, obviously, you've made it no secret. You grew up a Montreal Canadiens fan. I was happy to get to take you to this one. Get to hang out for a bit off camera as well. Exciting time in the rink. But I got to confirm something for one of our listeners here. And it's a Saturday night. We're not quite after dark yet, but the humor is going that way early. Zero Ghost 8, friend of the show. Thanks for sharing the show on Twitter. Appreciate that. We love to see that from our supporters. Says over on Twitch to start the night, rumor has it that you could in fact see Mikey's erection. A little inappropriate on the show early on. From space after getting to see Hudson's first goal and seeing Patty launching some clappers again in person from the Bleu Blanc Rouge. Oh, I fucked that up. I'm sorry.
Bleu Blanc Rouge.
Care to confirm or deny? And I'm just saying.
It's that and the wall in China. Those are the two things you can see. Yes, you are correct, Rick. That is right. That was incredible getting to be there for Lane Hudson's first NHL goal. Just, what a special night. What a special moment. And man, that guy can skate. Holy shit, he's a player.
I gotta say, the fact it comes in a loss, even better before we get a little too off the rails here on a Winnipeg Jets post-game show. So I appreciate that. Hey, you got to celebrate this upcoming D-man that we've seen a lot of social media hype about, and I know I was looking forward to seeing him for myself in person and seeing what that looks like. And typical Winnipeg Jets, letting a milestone goal in. That's kind of
that's our thing.
It's kind of it's kind of the Winnipeg Jets thing.
Yeah, you know, if there's going to be some type of special moment where if it's a goal or some type of milestone, there's a good chance the Jets are going to be the one to celebrate that for the other team. So, hey, as long as it comes in a loss for the opposing team, I think the Jets will take that.
Absolutely. And speaking of excitement and cheering, Patty Laine during the anthem, during the Canadian anthem, gets a huge ovation as the cameraman shows him on the Jumbotron, takes a sneak up to see he's on it, and you can see that, he felt good about that.
Yeah.
Nice to see him back playing hockey and healthy. The one that got away for some of us in Winnipeg. And I got to say, with those two guys you mentioned, I do think the Montreal rebuild has a real nice makings to quite the dynamic duo, especially on a power play unit. I think we saw, when it comes to Lane Hudson, and Sil on Twitch says, at least Hudson now has a highlight that isn't just him skating. Because I gotta say, the Habs fans on social media, some of the hype clips we're getting are pretty funny to watch. It's just a guy skating from his own zone to the blue line half the time.
Yeah.
But I'll say this on Lane Hudson, you saw, I thought today, a lot of the reasons. If you're a Montreal Canadiens fan, you'd be excited. You've seen the drawbacks, though, as well. Obviously, he gets out-muscled on that Lowry line goal against.
Yep.
But what I saw from Lane Hudson today, I'm a believer now. What he creates offensively, I saw a young Quinn Hughes there.
Absolutely.
Now, will he make the strides that Quinn did defensively that's put him on that pedestal? I think that's a big ask,
story.
So I'm just throwing that out there. But the offensive creation was pretty fun to watch. I'll give him that.
Yeah, he's got the IQ for it. He's got the skating. he's just a fun player to watch. It's just good hockey. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where you can just sit back and enjoy the skill sometimes.
So on the game itself, let's keep it to the Patty Laine, Connor Hellebuck battle. Obviously, I make no bones about it. Big Connor Hellebuck guy, big Patty Laine guy, and the rock star was back in the market with quite the banger of a quote this morning, saying how every time he's been back playing against the Jets, he hasn't seen Connor Hellebuck in net, and made a joke about Hellebuck getting the Patty flu. No flu for Connor Hellebuck in this one, as Patty Laine gets 7 shots on goal. None beat the best in the world in Connor Hellebuck, including that save. What was it at our end there in the second period with the one-timer on the power play?
Yep.
No Patty Laine flu for Connor Hellebuck tonight, who comes up big time and time again, was the first star in the building.
Yep.
And hey, he's the best in the world for a reason. Connor Hellebuck was that guy again today, making some real highlight, real saves. First period, I want to say it's that side to side. The Laine one in the second period right in front of us. And then the glove on the line when Hudson goes to Laine for the one-timer with the net pulled and it hits Slafkovsky in the chest before bouncing on line.
Yep.
Connor Hellebuck was absolutely dialed again in this one.
Yeah, he got his Patty flu shots before the game today. There was no flu. He was fully healthy for that one. That was he was putting on a show for all of us in the building tonight, as he does, almost every night. It's we kind of talked about how Connor Hellebuck has become so good so often that it almost feels, humdrum. It feels like it's something that should be happening all the time, and we got to give him his flowers because, man, some of those saves tonight were just incredible.
Yes, we definitely are fortunate to have that guy back there. But there was a lot of good in this one, too. The power play comes up big. Let's get into some of that. You know what? Let's start turning this show over to the chat and open up those phone lines as we dive into another Winnipeg Jets post game. Just to wrap up that conversation on Hudson, Laine, Hellebuck. Sil says on Twitch, let's just start saying the shifty offensive D-men are young JMOs. We need to get his name up there. And that's what I'll say this, though, about young JMO.
I like that.
The guy was developed to be a defensive guy. So it's hard for me to put those guys in that conversation when we've seen just how far JMO's defensive game has come. And the offense came later, despite being an offensive prospect. So I love where you're going with that. But I just don't see the comparison as much.
What a night, though, for Josh Morrissey tonight again. He is so much fun to watch. He is on another level at the moment. The way that he's controlling the game in short spurts is really special right now, I think.
Hey, we were talking about it a lot with me, you, and Doug up in 312 tonight. JMO is just a fun player to watch. When that skating ability is there, I mean, we saw him take over a few shifts as he normally does and really keep things going. Like, one thing I really noticed, especially in the second period, when it comes to the power play, there was one power play there where it seemed pretty obvious that it became the Habs PK plan to step up on Cole Perfetti as they were transitioning into the zone.
Yep.
And Josh Morrissey's just there with second, third efforts to keep that in, keep that power play running. He brought his pretty stride out tonight in a few moments in this one to dazzle with the skating. Yeah, Josh Morrissey continues to be one of the players worth it in Winnipeg. That's just a treat to watch where he's come.
I can't wait to see what he looks like at Four Nations in that best on best type of format with high end guys all around him all the time. It's gonna be interesting to see. I can't wait.
Yeah, over on YouTube, Doug Henderson relays the message of, hey, Mikey, nice to meet you as well. Matt Hyman says, as Matt Hyman discovered yesterday, that there's a top line Toronto with Brady and Voth. Says, if you mention the Leafs lost, I'm cool with that. Ha. And T. Will says, I'm all right, I'm here, but if we start talking about the Leafs, I swear to Jeebus, there will be no Leafs talk on this night. Let's clear that air. Spency is fired up with a capital LFG and a bunch of G's at that. Kevin Kowaluk, Jets win and Wings win. Nice night for me. And Kevin, I gotta say, how are you feeling about the Iser plan? Because I'm not too comfortable with the Iser plan going over on in Detroit.
Feeling a little shaky.
What's that?
It's feeling a little shaky right now, the Iser plan.
It is. It is. He also mentions, not gonna lie, I was a little worried with the start and the Montreal goal, but they responded pretty well. And we were talking about that up in our seats tonight. Eh? Another slow start for the Winnipeg Jets. Now they settle into this one quite nicely. They are the much better team as this game goes on. Do we make anything out of the consistent slow starts, or the more frequency we're seeing those slow starts?
I've been concerned about them, even dating back to some of the win streak. It's more than a pattern at this point now. Like it's kind of a habit. It's something that is very, very consistent, and I don't quite understand why they're so slow to get out of the gate, to get their feet moving, to find shots on goal. Even it's a weird thing, and I don't really know what to attribute it to yet. But it's something we have to keep watching, because you can't start off that way. Again, I know we talk about it all the time, but when you get to the playoffs, you can't start that way against the best teams in the league. You can't give up the first 10 minutes of the game every game, right? So you can get away from that maybe with the Habs, but with the best teams in the league, you're gonna get bad results more often than not.
No, for sure. I got nothing to add there. I like exactly where you went with that. Phyllis goes somewhere. Keeping on the heli talk, obviously another big night for him. We know he's the anchor of this team. Says Heli has muscle memory from all those years Laine was on our team. He would have taken thousands of shots at Heli, read him perfectly every time. And I got a quote from Murat when Hellebuck was asked tonight about that one-timer goal or save that we're talking about in the second period that was right at our end. Hellebuck even says, I lost it for a second. By the time I picked it up, it was on its way to the net. So the only thing I could do was just flail and try and make something cool. And thank God I did. So even in a moment when he knows he's beat, he's doing everything to stop the puck on Patty Laine's stick from going in. Mm-hmm. Connor Hellebuck, just excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, he's just different, man. It's incredible to watch, and we're so lucky. And it's another reminder that we need to make sure that this team does everything it can to try to get Connor Hellebuck a Stanley Cup ring.
For sure. I could not agree more. And touching on your point here, Mikey, Choices TK says over on Twitch, you can get away with that against teams like Montreal, like he said, but not a good habit to get into. It will kill you against good teams. And I think we've seen that at times creep into the Winnipeg Jets against some of those better teams in the league when they do start out behind the game. Yep. I also do think it's interesting because we were talking about this. This game is pretty interesting to me in the sense that you could see where Montreal wanted to go with this game, and that was a bit of a track meet, right? Yep. We know this team. We know St. Louis come in there and made young players and skilled players and talented players feel comfortable in the NHL, which isn't necessarily always how people are broken into the game or welcomed into the league, right? But the one thing me and you, I know, have talked about quite a bit is just how Montreal, the one thing kind of lacking from them taking another step forward right now is kind of the lack of structure in their game, right? Yeah. And at times I do feel the Jets let this get into a track meet, but it's one of those, because it's a team like Montreal, it's probably a track meet you're comfortable getting into given who your goalie is, and your more talented players are just further along than Montreal's right now. But I will say in years or games past, we've seen the Winnipeg Jets come into a game like this with a team that is easy to expose and really break that team down and really grind them in. And I think that's kind of coming in on some of these comments here, because I see from Elias McCracken, great win, but feel a bit empty. Think we need to see a blowout. And also mentions I'm this close to going on a hunger strike until they take Stanley out of the lineup. Watched him closely tonight, and he was bad, so slow physically and mentally with his decision making. We'll touch on that in a bit. I know over on Twitch too, just along this lines of the Winnipeg Jets are the better team in this one, but it didn't feel like one where they really exerted themselves as one of the upper class teams. And we normally see the Jets break a team like this down. So I don't want to make too much of it, but I came into this matchup expecting even more of a lopsided game, not to be coming down to the wire like that, given what we know about Montreal. Just to touch on Joyce's comment before throwing it back to you, Mikey. Choices also said, took care of business and banked the points against a bad Montreal team, but concerning only one 5-on-5 goal again, 5-on-5 goal against a bad defensive team that has given up the third most goals in the league. Kind of the game you can lose, but not extending the lead on a team like that, allowing them to hang around. And that is something that I think when we talk about just the top end of the Winnipeg Jets game, what we expect from them as the year goes on, that was something that stood out to me in this one as well against the not so quality opponent in Montreal. And I'm curious on your thoughts on that.
So I think there's a couple things that go on with that. First off is Samuel Montembeault. If not for a few of the ridiculous saves that he also had to make, the score would have been extremely lopsided. He took quite a few goals off the board entirely for the Jets tonight. So that would have been the blowout that you maybe would have kind of seen on the scoreboard there. The other part too, 5-on-5, the Habs are halfway decent defensively. They're god awful at special teams. But 5-on-5, especially Montembeault, his numbers 5-on-5 generally are pretty good. So that's why you only got to see the one 5-on-5 goal tonight. And yeah, if not for some of the ridiculous, just absolutely larceny saves that he also threw out there, you would have had that blowout score. So, you know, it was there. It just, we got to see a Four Nations goalie matchup tonight, essentially, is what happened.
Fair enough on that. Over on YouTube, Phyllis says, do not go on a hunger straight, Elias. It's not that serious. And Choices says, get ready to starve.
Yeah.
John Chan says, Chevy, please don't waste the best years of Helly and Morrissey. Vegas Golden Knights showed that the Jets still have some ways to go before they're a serious cup contender. And also mentions that Habs always play the Jets hard and came very close to taking this game to overtime. And I actually this game felt like, you think about, obviously, all of this is entertainment. At the end of the day, this is all an entertainment product for all of us, right? And you start thinking about, sometimes when you romanticize about sports and certain things are coming. When the Habs got to pull the goalie early, I kept thinking the line A tying goal was coming just for the storyline element. 100%. This was definitely closer than the Winnipeg Jets probably wanted it to be as it came down to the wire. And I kind of feel a lot of the same way as some of those people feeling like they wanted to see more. And this is an interesting game. And Fat Tony goes here, and I was looking to go here as well. He says, Jets are not getting the push from their bottom six. And then he says it's been like this for a month. This was one of those games, and we haven't talked a lot about games like this. Both skilled lines looked really good. Some positive signs I saw out of the Perfetti, Nemestikov, Chebrikov line. Yep. That line seems to have really found some chemistry to create some offense in transition. There was a few times today we saw a little bit more of that Perfetti driving to the middle, getting it to the outside to Vlad Nemestikov or Nikita Chebrikov. Chebrikov also gets to the net. We saw him almost create his fourth goal in fourth games, creating a battle net front and working from there. We also saw him after Vlad won a draw to Perfetti on the inside, and Perfetti gets a good look. This was another game where I thought Perfetti had some real quality chances, and I know people want them to go in, but the old adage, right? Start worrying when the chances aren't coming. I think we're approaching a bit of an offensive breakout here. The way I'm seeing Cole Perfetti game starting to round out, we'll see if that comes to light. Yep. But this was another quality game for them. This is the type of game that, I have my issues with the top line. This is the type of game you expect the top line to come in and do their thing, and this was a game where they did. They're on the positive end of the shot attempts, 11-7. I thought they had created some looks, and they were just off on a couple looks as well, both at 5-on-5 on the power play. But then you look at both the non-skilled groups today. I thought this was a tougher game and a limited minutes game. It didn't feel like we saw the fourth line a lot tonight, but I didn't think they really had it going. And then the Adam Lowry line has another tough night in which they saw that Montreal top line. And I thought that Montreal top line outplayed them for a lot of this game. It reflects in the shot attempts, 11-4 in favor of Montreal when that line was on the ice. And the score itself, 2-1 in that matchup. What do you think of the bottom six and the Winnipeg Jets right now?
I actually think that was or sorry, just quickly on the second line, real fast on the skill. I thought that was Vlad Nemestikov's best game of the season offensively. I just really liked the positions that he was getting himself into, and that they were able to find Chibrikov in as well. And I know we've been a little hard on Vlad when it comes to the offensive side of his game, because for good reason, right? It's where offense has gone to die for a lot of the times. It's nice to see that they've found something that might be able to work on some of the nights. So that was good. Yeah, the bottom six, we did not see a lot of the fourth line, which is not the usual. Although the ice time is still right around their usual ice time, right in their average. It felt like they weren't as effective tonight as they have been, not nearly as noticeable with the speed. Which maybe kind of leads into what we were talking about, where the Jets got sucked into that track meet tonight, so you don't notice the blinding speed of Kapari when it's going in both directions, right? So yeah, it's a little concerning because we're very dependent on a 4-line game, and you need all 4 lines going to win most nights. They didn't need it tonight, but you want to make sure that that's not a normal thing going forward.
No, for sure. I agree. And it has been a bit of a struggle to see. And we were talking to Doug in the stands, and he was talking about the idea of potentially adding 2 forwards and 1 D. And I believe Kenny Wee was talking about that over on KNR. Is that something you start to think about with the bottom 6?
At least, so we've talked about the domino effect that adding a big name up front is going to create. So that's going to be a big chunk of it there, right? If you can force a Vlad Nemestikov or a Mason Appleton onto your 4th line, like, that's huge. That is such tipping the scale in your favor in so many of the matchups that those guys are going to get night in and night out. So that's a big piece of it. They probably will add some type of depth for the bottom 6, because they'll probably want to add a little more size if they can find it for that, especially getting deep into the season. You want to give guys nights off, especially if they're playing real hard in those tough minutes. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them add a bottom 6 depth, piece. I just don't see it being I think the biggest addition to that bottom 6 is going to be the top 6 ad that creates the room for one of those, like I said, a Mason Appleton or a Vlad Nemestikov to beef up that 4th line.
Yeah, no, that makes some sense. Let's keep talking about this game here. One thing I found interesting, actually, and we're talking about the Lowry line, hey, and this was something I noticed. Obviously, they blow coverage a couple times. That one goal against Lowry doesn't get back down low quick enough, and they fail to clear, I believe, shortly before. Another thing I noticed early on in this one, and we know that line isn't one to cheat the effort side of the game, but there's one play early on in this game that really stood out to me as Lowry and Appleton really get back on the back check, and it's almost a 4-on-3 because all 4 Jets are back on 3 forwards, and this is something that creeps into some Jets forwards games when they do back check, and you get the praise, right? You see the effort behind it. They were losing an offensive D-man like Hudson on that transition a few times, where if Montreal had found him, he was that second-level attack that no one had picked up. Yep. So that was just another aspect for a line that you're expecting to be strong defensively, potentially costing you defensively by a blown assignment. It didn't cost them on the ones I saw, but that was something that had creeped into the game that I had noticed as well.
It's interesting because Appleton and Niederreiter played the second and third least amount tonight from the forward group. Barron and Iafallo played more than both of them tonight, which is not something you see with that grouping. So, yeah, there's things that Scott O'Neill did not like, from that line, which in a defensive line where that's been their bread and butter, yeah, you don't want to see that, especially against a team like Montreal, which isn't bringing, it's not bringing Connor McDavid to the table.
Yeah, for sure. But you know what I did like? Kyle Connor's assist to Gabe Vilardi on the power play. I want to talk about that play for a second. Obviously, Kyle Connor gets a goal on the 5-on-3, gets the primary assist on the first power play goal from Gabe Vilardi. And that cross-ice pass and the subtlety of what he does right before it, you see Gabe Vilardi floating to that back post. And we've talked about this. When Kyle Connor is patient and waiting for the game to come to him for for creating with the puck, it's become an even more dangerous offensive player, right? On that play, Kyle Connor takes a step into the middle of the ice to try and become a shooting threat before pivoting back, and it bumps the D-man up just enough that he's got that cross-ice seam backdoor right to Gabe Vilardi. Just a thing of beauty. What'd you see from Kyle Connor tonight, especially on that power play?
Man, I absolutely love when you can see when they have Connor carrying the puck in and finding those spots like that. It opens up the game so much for the Jets. And it doesn't hurt having, fucking Gabe Vilardi with the best hands out front to throw those two to get into the net. So it's interesting. Kyle Connor's thought of only as, he's a goal scorer. He's a goal scorer. That's what he does. He scores goals. And he does. He does that a lot, and he does that extremely well. But he's got another level or another layer to his game that we don't get to see enough. And when they pop through like this, it's special. It's fun to watch.
And Choices goes the same way you're going with that thought and says, Connor is an underrated playmaker. All the more reason to split him at 55 up and make the second line more of a threat.
Totally agree.
I like that approach to it. And that it's funny, you're sitting in that arena and that 5-on-3 is going on. And people are kind of getting restless because on a 5-on-3, especially early on, you're getting into that box plus one. You're moving it around and looking for an area attack. And the shot selection was a little iffy. And then you see, I believe it was Scheifele to Connor, and Montembeault makes that big save.
Yep.
And to finally break that 5-on-3, and it was right as the crowd's getting restless. When a power play is just not going right, and you get that undercurrent of unhappiness in an arena. Just as that starts to brew up on that 5-on-3, Gabe Vilardi, and it's like the little things within a hockey game. Early on in that 5-on-3, you have an odd man situation everywhere you set up, right? So you're looking for the best shot. You're not necessarily moving as much. But as that breaks up after the rebound, Gabe Vilardi, behind the net, decides to drive the middle of the ice again, making people move. And he's able to dish it up to Morrissey, breaks the triangle of the 5-on-3, gets it over to Connor, who beats Montembeault on the one-timer again. He's not going to miss twice, but it was another effective moment from this Winnipeg Jets power play who comes up big tonight. Just something I wanted to highlight there, seeing how that all had come together to create a really pretty goal for that power play unit.
Yep, absolutely. That's exactly the type of setup that you want to see from that group going forward too. So that was great.
Yeah, no, for sure. Elias McCracken over on YouTube also says, agreed on KFC. Love it when he is patient and not just taking low percentage shots. It just makes him that much more of a dangerous offensive player because teams know he's a threat. As much as everyone talks about him being underrated, the entire NHL knows who Kyle Connor is.
Yep.
And when he is patient with the puck, it just makes him more dangerous where he could add that playmaking dynamic to it.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll just and it makes the Jets better, right? I can't agree more with what Choice has said. That's why you need to split him and Scheifele up to spread that out, give the Jets more of that on two different lines.
In the arena today, how about 100 years old, 100-year birthday, first Jets game given the fist pound. Cool little moment in-house in this one.
That was really neat. Couldn't believe it. 100 years old. Happy birthday to that guy. That's amazing.
Absolute legend. Just feeling himself. Wanted to touch on that. That was pretty impressive to see. I can't imagine I'm making it there.
Right?
Yeah, I can't see it. I'd be stunned.
I was curious.
Another thing.
Oh, no, go ahead. I was really curious to see what you thought of Dylan DeMello tonight.
I thought this was one of his better nights with the Winnipeg Jets. Obviously, I thought the puck movement was a bit better. I thought he was more steady than we've seen. He gets the secondary assist on that Lowry goal with quite the bad saucer pass, if we're being honest. Yeah. Nino Niederreiter makes a skilled hands play there, and then starts driving behind the net for a wraparound before finding Lowry on that short side. But I thought this was a better game from Dylan DeMello. What'd you think?
Yeah, I did too. I thought this was a bit of a step in the right direction for DeMello. He looked a lot better tonight than he has in the last little while, and I didn't know if maybe that was just being there in person and seeing it compared to on TV. So that's why I was curious to see what your thoughts were on him tonight, because he looked a little bit better tonight, kind of on the right path, and we need that badly. And yeah, he second in ice time tonight, just behind Josh Morrissey. It was a much better game, I thought.
Yeah, I thought they were solid. I thought it was a bit more of a struggle for the Pionk Fleury group on this one when you're looking at the pairings. Really liked Miller's game jumping back into this lineup. A guy that I would look at as the number 5 defenseman. And if you're going to want to figure out what's going on with Hanel and Stanley, let them figure it out in a rotation on the left side. That's kind of where I'm at with that at this point.
Yep, I agree. I'm real curious to see what's going to happen to that decor when everybody is healthy and what lineup decisions get made, because I'm a little nervous about that.
Hey, we'll see in due time.
Yep.
Another interesting aspect I saw in this one, we've talked a lot about the Winnipeg Jets power play and what's made it effective, and kind of having Nick Ehlers in what the Jets are calling that pop position, which allows him to support in the zone. I actually found it pretty interesting watching how the Montreal Canadiens used Laine on their first power play in a similar fashion, except for the pop position in the slot was used to slowly get him back into his shooting spot.
Yep.
A little cool little twist to how Montreal was looking to loosen up Laine, and something I wonder if more teams are going to start utilizing with the movement.
Yeah, if you have a shooter that can take that spot, you'll definitely start to see other teams start using that in system. It's fun to watch with him out there. And Hudson Delaine is going to be just money going forward.
Yeah, the shot creator with a shot like that. I definitely like what the Habs are cooking up there for sure. Another big moment I found in this one, as that game was kind of on the tipping point potentially for the Habs to try and get back into this. Hudson finds Caulfield backdoor. Again, Connor Hellebuyck comes up big. Didn't think the Habs necessarily generate a ton of quantity, but it did feel like there was a lot of side-to-side movement type opportunities, and another just aspect of Connor Hellebuyck coming up big.
Yeah, that's generally the game plan. They like they want to get the goalie moving side to side and try to find those spots that way. So unfortunately, they run into Connor Hellebuyck, who's the best in the world right now.
And another smaller play, and I was kind of talking about the idea of the second line finding more transition. And I want to continue to build up this, not narrative, but this idea that Chibi continues to earn more minutes with the Winnipeg Jets. And I honestly think, and we talked about this last game, but I think where Tony's going with the bottom 6 and where the Chibi conversation is going, I do wonder if those are going to come to a head when Ehlers is healthy and help each other out. This was another game I thought Chibi took another step forward between trying to get to the net, create another goal. We see him and Perfetti working pretty well, which is interesting to me, and I'm intrigued to see more of it because we know obviously there's been a lot of frustration with some segments of the fan base when it comes to 91. So I'm curious to see more, but I do wonder as we get deeper if that becomes a bigger picture. Chibrikov's helping that bottom 6 need it. One play that stood out to me, and I talked about the idea that second line is starting to create a bit more in transition. Chibrikov becomes the low guy in the D zone. And it's one of those plays, Stanley decides to skate into traffic because for whatever reason, that's what Logan Stanley likes to do, and creates a battle down low. And it's a 2-on-1 battle against Logan Stanley at first. And Chibrikov gets in there as the support guy, wins the puck, takes it around the net, sends it up to Perfetti, who has a guy beat, ends up finding Nemestikov, who's got a stride on his guy. Nikita Chibrikov, I'm growing increasingly more. Keep this guy up here.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think he adds an element that they need, and he's finding chemistry with guys that were struggling to find chemistry. Fox 147569 in the chat says they would love to see Chib, Fetz, and Ehlers, play together. They weren't really sure who could play center on that line. But I just want to find, some type of combo that keeps Chibrikov somewhere in the lineup, whether that's in that top 9 somewhere. I wouldn't hate seeing him play, somewhere in there, or even if that's hopping on the line with Kapari and Iafallo. But they got to find somewhere to keep him if he keeps putting in effort like this, because he adds exactly what they need, and to send him back down to go back to the lineup from before would be a little disappointing.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I see both on Twitch and YouTube. The chat is starting to go to it. Turd Ferguson had said it first. Are we going to talk about the Athletic trying to trade Lambert for Uyghur? I'm here for the trade talk, LOL. Elias McCracken says, at TF, hope not. Like to get Uyghur, but not for Lambert. Over on Twitch, Choices TK had said, gotta say, impressed your Twitter poll on the Uyghur trade. Got it 65%. Make that trade. Sending Lambert. Jets fans, no puck. So if you had missed this, the Athletic had put out an article today looking at one trade per team and discussing what the price would be, whether the team should make it. And when it came to the Winnipeg Jets, Murad had suggested Mackenzie Weegar, who, if you've listened to this podcast, you know where I stand on Mackenzie Weegar. The Athletic staff, and I believe it was for that one, it was Myrtle, had suggested that the asking price be Brad Lambert. So I had pitched a poll over on Twitter saying the Athletic ran a mock trades involving one tantalizing trade for each team in the league, in which they arrive on the Jets being Brad Lambert for Mackenzie Weegar. To that you say. Through 293 votes, 63% called it a home run, send it in. 37% said too steep, no thanks. If you're in the chat right now, or if you're listening to this after, let me know your thoughts and the reasons behind whether you'd be interested in making that deal. But I'm going to throw it over to you, Mikey. If you could get Mackenzie Weegar for Brad Lambert at this year's deadline, are you making that trade?
Man, you can call me Fry, because shut up and take my money. I'm falling over my feet to make that trade if I'm the Winnipeg Jets. If it's straight up Brad Lambert for Mackenzie Weegar, and I'm a big Brad Lambert fan. I have a huge Brad Lambert proponent. But if you're able to do that as a trade, you do that all day. It exactly addresses the gaping massive hole that the Jets have on D for that is a proven NHL player to fill that spot versus the lottery ticket of what could be in a Brad Lambert, and the Jets are in a we need players now, we need to produce now mode. In my opinion, you do everything you can if that is the deal on the table. Now, from the Flames standpoint, I cannot see that being the only asking price. I'd be shocked beyond shocked if that's all that it took to pry Mackenzie Weegar out of Calgary. But yeah, if I'm the Jets and that's the deal that gets put on the table, I'm faxing the league. I'm everything to get that trade in before somebody wakes up and realizes what happened.
Yeah, I'm gonna highlight. I see over on Twitch, Fat Tony 202 says Nick knows I have serious concerns with Uyghur aging curves and all that. And we had just talked about last show about the idea of a 30-plus D-man in DeMello and term. And Mackenzie Weegar certainly has some term. Still 7 years left, $6.25 million entering his 30s. And those concerns, I believe, are valid for any player with term into their late 30s. That being said, I've made it quite obvious that for me, is one of my best targets for the Winnipeg Jets. And the way I see it is this. Their window, as we've talked about, is the next 2 to 3 years. You're going to expect that Shifley contract is going to be underwater. The Hellebuyck contract, as he ages, is going to be underwater. The Winnipeg Jets really need to make the most of the next few years. So if Tony's valid concerns on aging comes, it's likely going to come at the time when some of those other deals come down. And I believe the Winnipeg Jets are probably going to be taking a step back at that point. I mean, those are the key pieces to this franchise. Age comes for everybody. Yep. That being said, I look at it this way, and it's that Mackenzie Weegar just missed being on the Team Canada roster this year. He's a top pairing, legitimate right-handed D-man that can play both sides, brings a physicality aspect, and I think at $12.5 million between him and Josh Morrissey at the top of your D-core and being able to either load them up in games or potentially have them really running two really good pairings just gives you a lot more protection back there. I know I've made it pretty clear. I think that is the big need. So if it's Brad Lambert for Mackenzie Weegar, I'm there. I'm making that deal right now if it's possible. Now, I do think Elias McCracken makes a good point as a counter here, saying knowing Chevy's history, I just don't see him moving Lambert. And that's definitely a possibility here. But if you have a chance to get a number one right-handed D-man on a team that it's pretty much make or break time, given where the can's been kicked, I think that's the type of bet you have to stomach. I really do.
Yeah, we have to, at some point you've got to take some risks, especially when you've compiled the rest of the roster into a win now spot. If you have a guy in their prime producing in the right way, now especially the part that I would look at that Fat Tony mentions is that Uyghur's underlying numbers the last 3 seasons he says are going the wrong way. To me, that's more of a concern than the long-term effects of the contract, because I'm very much in the realm of go get that banner. That banner can hang in the rafters forever while we figure out the salary cap issues later on. Let's win that cup. But if the numbers aren't going to be going the right way, if it's going to be the wrong fit for the player, that's more my concern right now than the age portion.
And the other aspect is, and we know this is a reality, especially with someone on a long-term deal, Mackenzie Weegar does have no trade protection, and that'll be a bigger conversation that we don't know how he'd feel about coming to Winnipeg. I know he's from Ottawa, and that was of an interest to him in the summer, reportedly. But that's just an aspect we have no insight into as well.
Yep, exactly. That'll play a big part of it.
All right, moving forward. Just on that talk too, and I think Julian makes a good point here, as there's a bit of a dispute, a bit of a debate in the chat between Elias McCracken and Julian on potential D available. Elias believing that there's going to be a lot of D men available, so to worry about the value side of things and not trade a guy like Lambert. Julian does make a good counter here where he says there will be a lot of D available, but how many can actually move this team forward? Yep. Simply getting a D man to fill a need has not worked, and I do think that's an important aspect of this as well.
Yep, it is. It's a big piece of it. They need to find somebody that's gonna tip the scales in their favor, that can move the puck. Like, it has to be the right fit, and it needs to be long term. They've got to either find somebody with term or somebody that they can re-sign, because we can't go out and try to rental a top 4 right D every year.
I could see even some medium term working. Like, I know Thomas Chabot has 3 years left. Like, yep. that kind of term would work.
Absolutely. Yep. I don't want it to be a pure rental, right? Gone in the summer type of thing, unless it is somebody they believe that they can get to stick around and re-sign with a good run.
And a couple other names thrown in the chat. I see Elias McCracken says, now if we were talking Anderson, ... and Choices says Rasmus Anderson only has a 6-team no move. Maybe more of an option. More of a cap, less cap hit on his deal, though less term as well. Fat Tony also throws out Jake Wallman. He's right there. And that throws us back to the whole Kevin Kowalczyk convo earlier. How did Steve Yzerman pay to move Jake Wallman last summer when you're looking at that decor and the cap contracts back there?
I have no idea, to be honest. The Yzer plan is eluding me right now, man. It makes no sense.
And the interesting thing with Wallman is we want to talk about a guy that's been undervalued. He's had some good years, had a bit of a down year last year, but that's a guy that's putting up some really, really strong numbers on a really poor San Jose team.
Honestly, the name that's been more and more enticing to me lately, because I was big on, I wanted a one-stop shop in Long Island, right? Ryan Pulock, Brock Nelson combo. Let's go get it done nice and quick. But the more we talk about and the more I look at the numbers behind Thomas Chabot, I feel like that would be such a good fit for what the Jets need there. And he's playing well enough right now in a spot in Ottawa where he feels like the odd man out. I really wonder if we can do something there.
And he's come up in trade talks quite often. It's been interesting. It's been one of those weird ones where he's clearly been a big part of that franchise, but it's always been like he's potentially available. And I know Fat Tony 202 on Twitch is going to love that you threw that out there, because me and him were having this debate a bit earlier between Uyghur and Chabot via text. And the one thing, and you can never predict future injuries, so maybe it's me just hampering a bit. I would love if you could trade for a Thomas Chabot. Not going to hear a complaint out of me. That would be a monster get for the Winnipeg Jets. The one concern I have is at $8 million, the fact that his health hasn't been there consistently. It's the one concern I have. Hell of a player. If Chevy went and swung that, sign me up. That's the one concern I do have. Keeping on this conversation, Elias McCracken points out the other piece of the picture is that Calgary is most likely to want roster players now. They're building towards a future in 3 years when the new arena is finished, which is why you'd hear a name like Brad Lambert be connected to them. He's closer to playing in the bigs. They're going to be looking to increase their skill and talent level. He's someone that's going to be playing NHL games for them after being traded for him. And Elias says Barlow and Stanley in a pick for one of the two Calgary D-men.
Sold.
It's not going to get it done.
Sold.
It's not going to
Sold.
get it done.
Where do I go? Where do I sign? How do we do it? Let's go. Done.
Craig Connery hangs up and blocks the phone number.
I'll drive him to the airport. What do we need?
Yeah. I admire trying to dump your lesser assets for some quality. Not going to work out.
Can they just take Stanley anyways? Just as a, here you go.
I wish, brother. I wish. Matt Hyman. That's a good one. And we were talking about this last year. Matt Hyman asks, do you have an idea which D-men Chevy offered 2 firsts for? And if I remember correctly, see, this is why I got to write stuff down and have stuff ready. Tony, I know me and you were really working on this last year when that came out. So if you're in the chat, let me know. I want to say it was one of Matthias Ekholm the year before Edmonton trades for him, or Vlad Gavrikov when he was on that $2 million deal in Columbus when he was a shutdown D-man in his mid-20s. Those are the two I believe it was, if I remember that year correctly. Again, if you have more info or remember that a bit more clear, feel free to throw it in the chat. But I believe it was one of Ekholm or Gavrikov, if I remember that timeline right.
From what I...
Because I think Gavrikov had 3 years left at 2.8 and had really blossomed into a shutdown deco. And then Matthias Ekholm had, I think, 2.5 or 3.5 years left. I can't remember.
It was Ekholm in 2021. Does that sound right?
Was it Ekholm?
That's what I can see. I'm just doing a quick look back through the archives here. Yeah, it looks like it was. That's the rumors at the time. Yeah, Ekholm.
But the one thing that threw that through a loop, because I remember this was the weirdest thing that went under. I think it went under talked about. There was one time right after one of the deadlines, out of nowhere, and then I want to say it's Gavrikov because Friedman put in his 32 thoughts, and Gavrikov was not in any trade bait boards. Friedman had put, I heard the Winnipeg Jets made a real big push for Vlad Gavrikov. So I think it was Gavrikov. And I'm seeing on YouTube right now that Turd says, I think we determined it to be Gavrikov, and Fat Tony also says that as well, so in 2020.
Okay.
I think they offered
was 2021
for prime Gavrikov, who would have been in his mid-20s and actually a legit shutdown D-man and under $3 million cap. So I think that tracks. It would have seemed expensive because of how lesser known he was at the time. But when you factor in the cap and stuff, I do wonder with the 3 years at such a low cap, plus the known leak from Friedman, that's where I'd arrived at the time, I believe, when that came out.
Yep, that makes sense. The timeline fits for Gavrikov in 2020. Yeah, absolutely.
I see Elias McCracken pushes back a little bit, and I love that. Always push back. Barlow is not a lesser prospect, just further out. They're not looking for long-term roster players, just hole fillers. And I'm going to push back right back, though. You're not going to sell me on Barlow not being a lesser prospect than Lambert, Yager, Salmonson, any of that group. I just do not have him near on the same tier. Nice to see he's turned around his junior year a bit, but can't buy it. And they're not looking for long-term roster players, just hole fillers. A team in a rebuild is definitely looking for long-term roster players for some of their key guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. I could promise you that. Don Dawson says Friedman says tonight Brandon Saad was kept out of the lineup expecting St. Louis to move him could be a fit. Good player throughout his career, a little bit older, a little expensive. Could kind of fix that bottom six. I'd be surprised if that was a Winnipeg Jets move, but we'll see where that goes.
Yep.
I think that's more of a money dump at this stage, but
Yeah, agreed. If it was, a few years back, I'll take, 6 years ago, Brandon Saad all day.
Mm-hmm. Fat Tony on Barlow says last 15 games, his draft year defense has finally come back. More important than points to him. Hey, which is refreshing to see. I haven't been watching much Colby Barlow, and that was definitely a concern I had of his in training camp. So good to see he's taking strides past just his goal scoring. It's great to hear.
We'd like him to pan out as a prospect for the team and to be a player and everything. It's just he's had a rough start and hasn't really been in the position we kind of were hoping to see out of him.
Well, if you could turn him, Stanley, and a pick into one of those D's, sign me up. I just think Craig Conroy would think it's a no-go. But we're approaching the hour mark. Saturday night. I think everyone wants to get on with their Saturday nights. You want to jump into the 3 stars and get out of here tonight?
Right on.
Who are you starting with?
So I don't generally give out a star to the other team, but I'm gonna break it tonight and do it anyways. Lane Hudson, I'm gonna give him one. First NHL goal. He was fun to watch tonight. Oh yeah, absolutely. I got my blue blanc et rouge glasses on. I'm not even gonna deny it. It was great. I was so fucking giddy. I was such a mark for it tonight. I loved it. Second star, Connor Hellebuck. We talked about how he doesn't get enough of the love lately, and god damn is he good, man. We're so lucky. We're so spoiled. Connor Hellebuck, second star. And my number 1 star, no question, hands down, Top Line Media's Nick Lynham, taking me to the game tonight, letting me see Lane Hudson's first goal, having just a great time talking hockey all night, hanging out with Doug from the chat. It was awesome. Number 1 star, hands down, no question. This guy's the MVP.
Big night for your boy. Might have to get up and do a bow. Appreciate that. It was great to watch with you tonight and get to hang out, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. Elias McCracken keeps pushing back. So, hey, we got to keep this going a little bit here. Look at what Conroy traded Hamonic for at the deadline, long-term prospects and picks, not players. Hamonic. Do they have Hamonic? I'm a little confused here. Barlow will be in demand in 2 years. Book it. Flames are looking for guys that emerge later. We'll see. I think your package is soft. Well, let's leave it at we'll see. On the 3 stars, you gotta respect the pick. Hudson stood out to me. And I got to say, his D partner had me thinking about a potential D add in Mike Matheson. Really liked how
Probably
he played
will be
tonight.
Available.
Obviously, he's been thrust in a really big role in Montreal.
Yep.
And I think he'd get a bit of a cozier fit in a team like Winnipeg. Could skate well, move the puck well. Clearly on the power play, they got him playing everywhere.
Yep.
Given how their roster is constructed. I really did think that pair looked real solid tonight. Really enjoyed watching them. But I'm going to stick with 3 Winnipeg Jets in this one. Let's go. I'm actually surprised you didn't go Vladdy after giving him some praise earlier.
You know what's funny? I had him
pegged as a Vladdy pick today.
I had him on there. I did, and I was debating going back and forth, but I had to give it to Lane. I had to give it to my guy this time.
I'm going to go with let's go with Josh Morrissey, number 3. Enjoyed the smooth skating. Enjoyed just how fun he really is to watch up close and in person. We were talking with Doug tonight, and it's the 2 guys we could talk more about that we just don't are Connor Hellebuck and Josh Morrissey, just because it's expectations at this point that you see this level of play. So I'll go Josh Morrissey, number 3. I'll go Connor Hellebuck, number 2. Make some big saves in this one. He wasn't the reason the Winnipeg Jets won this one, but he still put up some highlight reels on this night. And I will go number 1, Kyle Connor. Scores the goal, has the beautiful primary assist on the PP. Let's take this one out with KFC tonight.
Hell yeah, I love that.
Thank you, as usual, for joining the landing strip. Make sure you like, subscribe, share with friends. It was nice to see some hype in the Winnipeg Sports Talk Discord this week. Appreciate you all sharing the good word. And we will be back next time. Elias, great show, guys. Thanks for the debate. Anything to get this team the cup. And that's the mentality, right? We're all on the same team here. We have different ideas, different debates. We want this show to bring those ideas. Let's discuss them. Let's share our opinions. Elias, appreciate the debate. We'll see you guys with the California back-to-back coming up this week. A couple late nights coming for the boys here.
Right on. You guys know the drill. Tell two friends to tell two friends. Get out there, rate, review, and remember, it's the landing strip for Winnipeg Jets postgame.